For most anime, and TV series in general, there's a standard of 20 to 25 minutes per episode. There are, however, an astonishing number of anime with shorter runtimes. This shorter format has often been used for spin-offs of existing anime, like Isekai Quartet and the numerous chibi idol anime. What I want to talk about today isn't spin-off shows though, but rather the world of short anime beyond that. You've probably already figured this out from the title, but this video will feature anime that is around 10 minutes or shorter. However, it won't include anything 5 minutes or less. Don't worry if you want to hear about those, there's just a lot of short anime I wanted to cover. So I'm planning to have anime with runtimes of 5 minutes and under be another video, or maybe even a series of videos. So without any further ado, let's dive into the weird and wacky world of anime you can watch in about 10 minutes or less. The first anime I want to talk about today is Tonari no Seki-kun. It's very possible you've already heard of this one, as it's one of the more popular entries in this video. The art style and premise are both pretty simple. A normal high school student, Rumi Yokoi, sits next to a boy named Seki. Seki gets to all kinds of shenanigans at his desk, which is never noticed by the teacher, thanks to gag manga logic. Every episode features a new activity that Seki is taking to the next level, from eraser dominoes to RC cars. Yokoi tries to focus on class, but always ends up distracted by Seki's tomfoolery. Her inner monologue, provided by Hanazawa Kana, serves as her reaction and also narration for the scenes. Seki's voice is provided by Shimono Hiro, although he never speaks, only ever letting out breaths and sighs. Even though they never actually talk to each other, the two main characters share a fantastic dynamic, with Yokoi always becoming increasingly invested in whatever Seki's doing that episode. The opening and ending are both great, and they both act as stories that fit into the Seki formula. In the opening song, Meiwaku Spectacle, sung by voice of Yokoi Hanazawa Kana, Seki goes through the process of making the very anime. It goes through a lot too, going from storyboards to keyframes to digital coloring, and even trying to get a voice recording. The ending, Set Them Free by Akira Jimbo, is a real banger, and features the use of school supplies in place of percussion, played by Seki himself. Seki-kun's formula is simple, but it's a winner, and it fits perfectly into its 7-minute runtime. It's a testament to how far one idea can go with a little bit of innovation. Even after watching all 21 episodes of the main series, the two 13-minute specials, plus the OVA that released before the series proper started, I would still love to see more. Another anime with a short runtime that you may have heard of, or even seen out of context, is Cromartie High School. Cromartie is a comedy anime, parodying Japanese delinquent, or Yankee manga, particularly the works of Ryoichi Ikegami. Don't worry about the context of what it's parodying though, because context is not required for just about anything in Cromartie High. The main character is an initially normal-seeming teenage boy, Takashi Kamiyama, who has just enrolled at Cromartie. At first he serves as the straight man to the insanity of the rest of the school, but he is hardly immune to the seemingly infectious stupidity, and soon ends up becoming an accomplice to the hijinks. The show is non-stop, with ridiculous jokes, scenarios, and characters. Some of my favorites include Mekazawa, who definitely isn't a robot, Gorilla the Gorilla, and Freddy, who looks awfully familiar. The art style is very distinct, thanks to its inspiration from Ikegami. The animation, on the other hand, is pretty limited, reusing the same angles and poses often. I think this limited animation style actually enhances the comedy, and it also makes the parts where there actually is fluid animation stand out. There's plenty more to say about the show, but I don't think I can truly capture the experience of watching it in words. I think this one's best left experiencing yourself, or maybe even with some friends. It's an absolute blast to watch with other people. Speaking of experiences, there's the topic of the English dub. I usually prefer to watch things in their original language, but Cromartie's English dub is pure gold. This is one of the few anime where I think the dub might be the best way to go. There's something about the breakneck pace of the comedy that the dub voice actors really got right. At 26 episodes of 12 minutes each, Cromartie comes highly recommended from me. If you've seen my previous video, you know exactly why I need to cover this next one. Tentai Senshi Sunred is the magnificent story of conflict between good and evil that takes place in the city of Kawasaki. The force of good is our titular hero Sunred, a freeloader whose only hobby is playing pachinko. The force of evil is the organization bent on world domination, Flourishine, led by General Vamp, a homebody with skills in cooking and home care. So you may have caught on by now, but this show isn't a story about epic battles between a hero and an evil organization. It's actually the daily life comedy of a hero and an evil organization. In fact, Flourishine never really stood a chance against Sunred, who pushes them around and often criticizes them for not giving him enough of a challenge. If you've ever seen the Twitter account Mundane Tokusatsu, it's that, but an anime, and I'm living for it. It also takes some concepts from the idea of local heroes, with the involvement of real-life locations in the city of Kawasaki, and even local businesses. For those unfamiliar with local heroes, it is a subsection of hero-themed mascot characters that are designed to represent different regions of Japan. The show is very laid back, with the main premise of the comedy coming from the mixing of the mundane and the fantastical. But what really kept me watching was how charming the cast was. Although they are initially shown to be in opposition, Flourishine and Sunred really just act like neighbors. They are, in fact, just neighbors, with the members of Flourishine living in a share home together, and Sunred living with his girlfriend Kayoko. Sunred is a rude and foul-mouthed man, but he does help Flourishine every once in a while, and seems to be on relatively friendly terms with them, even inviting them out for drinks from time to time. With Kayoko, he's similarly shown to be rude, but genuinely loves her and tries to do his best to be good to her in his own clumsy way. Similar to Cromartie, the animation style is generally pretty limited, reusing poses and moving the heads to the dialogue. There are even recurring bits that consist entirely of still images with these moving head mouth flaps. One of the recurring segments is a cooking show with Vamp that features some live-action footage of food. The openings for both seasons are styled after official hero show type music. While most of the opening consists of snippets of daily life, like the show itself, there is a small section in both openings where we get to see Sunred if it was a more serious hero show. Both openings also each have a recurring bit at the end. In the first one, Sunred puts his motorcycle up for sale, and the price goes down every episode, while in Season 2 he charges his blaster, with the charge percentage going up every episode. Sunred is another simple show with a simple premise that's brought together by its smart choices in presentation, and charming casual voice performances. You don't even need experience with hero shows to understand it. If you're looking for a slightly unconventional slice-of-life comedy, this might be the show for you. We've been going over a lot of comedies, which makes a lot of sense. Short skits would of course fit well into short formats. Next up is a show that does something completely different. Kanojo to Kanojo no Neko, or She and Her Cat, Everything Flows. She and Her Cat is short even among the anime that qualify for this video. It's only 4 7-minute episodes. She and Her Cat is about a girl, Miyu, and her cat, Daru. In each episode we see small parts of Miyu's daily life through the eyes of Daru, with narration from Shintaro Asanuma, giving us Daru's internal monologue. Despite its short length, the pacing is slow, allowing the viewer to drink in every beautifully drawn moment of mundane life. There's very little that actually happens in She and Her Cat, but in this case, I don't think that's a bad thing. The story being told is incredibly personal, and the show's presentation complements this, allowing the viewer to understand the complexity of the characters' emotions within the short runtime. She and Her Cat is short and bittersweet, and a perfect example to demonstrate that sometimes less is more. There's a bit more to discuss though, as She and Her Cat, Everything Flows is not an entirely original work. Some of you may have noted a similarity to the works of Makoto Shinkai in the hand-painted feel of the environments. You wouldn't be far off. Makoto Shinkai did not direct Everything Flows, but he is the original creator of the short OVA that it is based on, which is also titled She and Her Cat. The original She and Her Cat is actually Shinkai's very first work, and even features Shinkai himself as the voice of the cat, Chobi. It's even shorter than its later adaptation at only 4 minutes total. It is entirely monochrome and uses rotoscoping for the animation, with the exception of the much more simply drawn cats. Despite the visual differences, it does have the same feel for the small details of life and the relationship between a cat and its owner. Both she and her cats have a lot to offer for their short length, especially if you're looking for something to pull at your heartstrings. This next anime may seem like a pretty strange pick for this video, but that's exactly why I want to talk about it. Ryusei no Rockman is an anime adaptation of one of the several iterations of the popular Mega Man video game franchise. I'll continue to refer to this anime by its Japanese name instead of its dub name, Mega Man Star Force, to help differentiate between the original Japanese version and the dub, as I'll be discussing that later. Also, I won't be discussing the game as I just want to focus on the anime, and I haven't actually played the games. Apparently, the anime is a pretty loose adaptation though, so there will be some major differences. Ryusei no Rockman is a kids anime with an action focus, as you might expect of a Mega Man show. The first season of the anime adapts the first set of Ryusei games, which there are 3 of, because it was split into different versions similar to the Pokemon games. The anime spans 55 episodes of about 10 minutes each, which is very unconventional for a show like this. The anime is set in a distant future, where humanity has developed advanced technology based on waves, but with this technology comes the threat of the wave-based Denpa viruses. Our protagonist is Subaru Hoshikawa, a young boy whose father went missing on a space mission. Because of this, Subaru stops going to school, which leads Luna Shirogane, the class president, voiced by Kana Ueda, to try and convince him to start attending again. Subaru is initially against it and of the idea of making new friends, but he starts to do both as the anime progresses. I really enjoy this archetype for kids anime protagonists, and it's really rewarding to see how Subaru has grown as a person by the end of the show. As for the Rockman part of this Rockman series, Subaru meets War Rock, a wave-based alien life form who becomes his partner and allows him to transform into Rockman. As Rockman, Subaru battles other aliens, known as F-Emians, who start possessing people and causing chaos. Some of the F-Emians aren't evil though, like Harpnote, who is young idol Hibiki Misora, played by Misato Fukuen, who also sings the opening Heartwave, which features some great animation and is a personal favorite for me even among any songs. Other F-Emians become recurring villains, like Gemini Spark, who takes over the body of the initially kind-hearted Tsukasa Futaba. While the show may seem like a pretty basic kids anime, it touts some stylish animation, with some amazing Sakuga moments. I would like to think this comes partially from the budget afforded by the short runtime of the episodes. The art style can also be partially credited to Adachi Shingo, the character designer for the anime. He also did character designs for the anime adaptations of Sword Art Online and Working. The show's pacing doesn't always fit its format though. The first few episodes especially feel like longer episodes that were split into shorter runtimes. There are some filler one-off episodes, but because of the brisk nature of the show, I found them to be fun little detours, unlike some other forms of anime filler. Ryusei does have a second season called Tribe, which adapts the second game set. It's about half the length at 21 episodes, and it features more of the good stuff from the first season, with plenty of Sakuga moments as well. Tribe has another Misato Fukuen opening Keys No Wave, which is also great. If you were like me and grew up with 4Kids and Kids WB anime dubs, then you may have experienced Mega Man NT Warrior, the English dub for Rockman.exe. The TV short format was actually originally adopted in the Rockman series for the final season of EXE Beast Plus, which directly preceded Ryusei. I don't think I'd like to jump into all 5 seasons of Rockman EXE for this video, so maybe some other time. The NT Warrior dub stopped after the second season, Access, even though the anime continued for 3 more seasons in Japan. When Ryusei came around though, there was an attempt at a dub made with Mega Man Star Force. There were 13 episodes produced, which compiled the shorter episodes into the regular 20-minute runtime. However, for whatever reason, it didn't finish, only reaching up to episode 25 of the Ryusei no Rockman anime. I haven't been able to find any official reason as to why they didn't finish the dub, but I also honestly don't think it's that much of a loss, considering the quality of what does exist of the dub. Overall, I really like Ryusei no Rockman, and I think any Mega Man fans and appreciators of good kids anime will enjoy it too. Sekko Boys is a totally normal idol anime. Obviously that was a joke, but honestly it's not even that far off. The only real twist is that the idols are, as you can see, famous sculptures. Most of the show is actually just normal idol stuff, making TV appearances and industry drama. The joke is really just that instead of some Bishonen anime boys, the idols are 3D renders of historical busts. They do take good advantage of the visual aspect of this concept a lot though. There are a ton of visual gags, like cutting between shots, and the boys have inexplicably moved. It's established pretty early on that the boys need to be moved and transported by a person as they're, well, statues, but they seem to move on their own to some extent. There are also some historical jokes based on the mythical and historical figures that the busts portray. However, I think most of the comedy is carried by the vocal performances, which is a star-studded cast, by the way. It features Tomokazu Sugita as St. George, Tachibana Shinnosuke as Medici, Daisuke Ono as Mars, and Fukuyama Jun as Hermes. As expected of these talents, the performances have some real personality, and it's a real trip to see their voices come out of these stone sculptures. But I honestly don't have much else to say about it. I don't know if I can even recommend this one. It's definitely short enough that you can have some fun with it and not feel like your time was wasted. It's only 12 episodes of 8 minutes long, but I think of all the shows in this video, it was the least interesting. The comedy wasn't as sharp as Cromartie, and the characters didn't have the charm of Sunred. Check this out if the premise sounds funny enough, I guess. Next up, we have a Chinese and Japanese joint production, with animation from Chinese studio Howliners, and supervision from Shinichi Watanabe, who worked on absurd parody anime like Excel Saga and Puni Puni Poemi. This is To Be Hero, and it's definitely within that realm. To Be Hero is all about absurdity. It moves at an absolutely breakneck pace. The plot revolves around a handsome playboy toilet salesman and single father, played by Kenjiro Tsuda. His wife left him, and his daughter Min hates his guts. One day he gets sucked into the toilet, where he is informed of an invasion encroaching on Earth, and gets turned into a superhero? But he's also completely unrecognizable. He can only turn to his pervert neighbor for a place to stay while he figures out what to do about the invaders and how to get his body back. The prince of the invaders, played by Tomokazu Sugita, again, falls in love with Min and even starts living with the pervert neighbor too. As you may have noticed, this show is not afraid to be absolutely disgusting. The show is of course full of completely ridiculous, crass, and sometimes downright offensive humor, but it's also a surprisingly effective drama. Min in particular is actually very compelling. Despite how much she puts down her father, once he goes missing, she misses him, and there's this scene that comes almost out of nowhere, but is nonetheless emotionally effective. Putting emotional drama in a show like this could seem out of place or just become a comedy bit, but I think it's handled stunningly well in To Be Hero. The small moments are unexpected and often quickly followed by more absurdity, but I think it makes them all the better. It adds a real human element to this world of debauchery, and I ended up super invested in that aspect. By the midway point of the series, I really did want to see Min make up with her father. I won't say too much, but the way the drama builds and the twist that brings everything full circle in the finale is seriously gripping. I can't believe this stupid-ass anime made me cry. God damn it. The animation, similar to Sunred, is generally pretty limited, but also has these sudden moments of incredibly dynamic animation for either comedic effect or just for action. And when it comes to the action, it really gets to the action. The opening, Ai ni Koyo by Bratz, puts some of this dynamism on display, and it's also a banger. The ending, Atashi no papa ga Chikyū wo mamoru by Kazuyo Lin, is a much cuter song, and despite the title, it's in Chinese. To Be Hero is a stupid, offensive comedy, but it's also a surprisingly thoughtful anime about love, family, and overcoming your own faults. We're not switching just yet though, because there's a sequel called To Be Heroine, with a runtime of 23 minutes per episode. So it doesn't quite fit the criteria of this video. I just don't think I'll ever get another chance to discuss it. So, To Be Heroine looks much more traditionally anime than the first To Be Hero, but it's just as ridiculous as the original. It also has a hidden emotional drama, just like To Be Hero. It also sports some crazy smooth animation for a show like it. One of the most unique aspects of it is that the languages switch between scenes. The voices are in Chinese in what seems to be the real world, while in Japanese in the weird magic world. It is quite strange, and I never really got used to it. The whole ordeal is really quite bizarre, but it's certainly unique, even compared to the first To Be Hero, and I'm happy to report that I enjoyed it. Both To Be Hero and Heroine are certainly not for everyone, but definitely check them out if you have a stomach for some objectionable content. Speaking of objectionable content, this is Murazumo Naki Kaikaku, or Legend of Koizumi. The Legend of Koizumi is a mahjong anime. Don't worry if you don't know anything about mahjong, the intricacies of the game are almost entirely ignored, which is fine for what the show is. The star of the anime is former Prime Minister Junichiro Koizumi. Yes, you heard right. Former Japanese Prime Minister Junichiro Koizumi. This isn't a fictional politician either. He is based on the real Koizumi that was actually Prime Minister of Japan from 2001 until 2006. The original manga started in 2006 and features characters based on politicians from the time. The political caricatures don't end in Japan though. US President at the time, George W. Bush, is a significant character, and so is his father, George Sr., known as Papa Bush in the anime. In the OVA, Koizumi faces off against parodies of North Korean leaders Kim and Jong-nam as well as Chinese leaders Wen and Hu in mahjong battle, defeating their tactics with his signature move, the Rising Sun. There's still more though, because founder of the People's Republic of China himself, Mao Zedong, comes back to life to challenge Koizumi's mahjong prowess. There's also aliens or something. As you may have expected, this premise is ridiculous and hilarious, at least if you're alright with some crass humor. The anime doesn't cover much, but in the manga, the main antagonist is none other than Adolf Hitler. The manga also has a modern sequel, which features some recent political parodies. This one is completely stupid, but if you're down for that, you'll have a great time. At 3 episodes of 8 minutes each, the anime version won't take much time at all, and it's sure to be an interesting watch. Oshiete Galko-chan on the surface seems like yet another raunchy ecchi comedy, and there certainly isn't a lack of big anime titty, but it's also surprisingly educational. The anime stars the titular Galko and her friends, the unassuming nerdy Odako, and the well-raised rich girl Ojo. The anime follows the daily lives of these friends and features their conversations where they often discuss topics like the female body and underwear. This may still sound like a sex comedy anime, and that is technically true, but the discussion is handled in a much more real way. The conversations feel very natural and replicate the feel of how teenagers just actually talk about such topics. They discuss common misconceptions and facts about boys and girls and the birds and the bees, and they might even teach you a thing or two. The ecchi does exist, as I said before, but it doesn't follow the common tropes of lucky accidents and misunderstandings that result in the girls brutalizing the generic protagonist. I'm not against those by any means, but it's really refreshing to see a show that handles sexuality in a more mature way in anime. The characters themselves don't follow the typical traits and stereotypes that their archetypes represent either. Despite her appearance and popularity, Galko is a thoughtful and innocent girl. Otako isn't shy or mild-mannered, but is rather assertive, often teasing Galko. and Ojo is probably the most adult of the group, despite her sheltered upbringing. A lot of the charm that I found in this show comes from the breaking of these cliques and stereotypes. Episode 3 is a great example of this, where Odako takes her teasing of Galko too far. When Galko doesn't come to school the next day, Odako goes to her house and tearfully apologizes, telling Galko how happy she was that a popular, fashionable girl who she never thought she could get along with became friends with her. It's genuinely really sweet, and although there's not any more huge dramatic moments like it in the rest of the anime, the thread that people that seem very different on the surface can have things in common and can become friends stays throughout. The opening, YPMA Girls, has a real moe feel to it, as you might expect, and features vocal performances from the seiyus. It's cute. Galko the show, just like the character, is a surprisingly sweet and thoughtful show, and I honestly wish more media was willing to discuss topics like the ones in Galko in a comedic but informative manner. I don't think any series about 10-minute anime would be complete without me discussing Space Patrol Luluco, or the related series Inferno Cop, and believe me, we'll get to that one. Oh, we'll get to that one. Luluco is a sci-fi comedy anime, animated by the folks at a humble little anime studio you may have heard of, Trigger. The protagonist Luluco just wants to be normal, but is dragged into a job at the Space Patrol, an organization against space crime. She sticks around to get closer to her crush, transfer student Alpha Omega Nova, usually just called Nova. Similar to some other entries in this video, everything from the plot to the action to the comedy in the show is fast-paced, and there are very few moments where something isn't happening. The animation is simultaneously incredibly limited, while also being incredibly stylish. It makes use of a bunch of budget-saving tricks that do add to the comedy, while also featuring the incredibly dynamic sequences that are director Hiroyuki Imaishi's trademark. The closest comparison I can make is Penny and Stocking, also directed by Imaishi. Penny and Stocking is of course much raunchier, but has the same kind of nuts-to-butts comedy and action. Luluco is like the distilled essence of Studio Trigger in the form of animation, and it even features guest appearances and references to the studio's previous works, Kill la Kill, Little Witch Academia, and of course, Inferno Cop. Once again, I could go on, but I think this one is definitely better experienced than explained. If you're a fan of Trigger, 2000s Gainax, Imaishi, or just crazy fun stuff, then you are seriously missing out if you haven't seen it yet. It's hysterical, a feast for the eyes, and at 13 episodes of 7 minutes each, Luluco is 1 hour and a half that I'm sure you won't regret. And that's it! 10 anime that you can watch in about 10 minutes or less. Hopefully your expectations were exceeded and you found something new that you'd like to check out. If anyone finds a new favorite show from this, I'll have completed my mission. I initially wasn't thinking of this topic as a series, but I really had to limit the scope of this video or else it would be hours long and would have never come out. I have a whole list of every 10-minute and 5-minute anime that would be interesting to cover, and I probably missed some, so I'll be adding more to that later. Please let me know whether you want to see more, like, subscribe, etc. Okay, thank you, bye bye!